Oh, cool. Clock tower. You didn't look like a tourist at all. Oh, cool. Look at this. Need some rocks. We've made it into Bisbee. The elevation here is 5,300 feet, and it was founded in 1880. We're just going to look around the town a little bit first. So we came to a coffee shop to get some coffee. Nice. Oh, there's the coffee shop. Nice alleyway. There is the Copper Queen Library. Wow, it's huge from this side. I didn't know it was that big. So we're just taking a quick walk through town. There's a bunch of shops. Antiques. Gelato. There's a gallery up ahead. Food. Another cafe. Oh, there's a loft hotel. Letson.
1918, that building.
Oh, that's cool.
There.
You want a what?
Pussycat Gelato.
Where's that at? Kind of colorful here. I like the old buildings. Art gallery. I think this is the Mercantile Store. Oh, look at it. Someone riding a scooter. Wow, look at this. It's a steel door. It's heavy. Looks like little bullet holes, doesn't it?
Well, you can see through them.
Oh, can you?
Yeah. It looks heavy. It just looks...
Yeah.
Looks like a...
Beefy. It's so beefy. Wow, look at all the hats. That's pretty cool. Oh, a beauty salon. Get a haircut. Get a haircut. Oh, ooh, steampunk. That's awesome. Oh, look at all the knickknacks. Oh my god. The crystal tree is calling my name. Those are cute. Those are stained glass though.
Yeah.
Those are really cute.
We have blood orange and the brownies.
Okay, I'm definitely coming back to this shop. Window shop.
It was a copper mine, by the way.
Yeah.
I love the big.
So yeah, this town was a copper mine. Oh yeah.
Look at the reflection. Yeah.
Yeah, the shadow on the wagon. That is pretty cool. The Bisbee Grand Hotel. Ooh, nautical stuff. I used to love nautical stuff when I lived at the beach. Holy cow, they got a whole red theme going on at this store. Oh, look at the umbrella. Asian umbrella. Ooh, I need the geisha outfit. Ooh, that's a pretty display. Nice old antique scene. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to stop by and shop at some of these, but we're just trying to walk through right now.
And painted it.
It looks really nice.
Bookshelves and everything.
Look at the monkey.
I think we're coming towards the end. Oh my god, if I was still doing sugar, I would be all over
And they're
this.
open, Bruce. Smells fresh.
There you go. Go get you something to eat, girl. No, not for you. And don't you be licking your lips over there. Jeff got a peanut butter cookie. Ooh, that looks delicious. I guess I'll try some. Oh, it's fluffy. I know. I'm not supposed to be eating sugar, but just a little piece. My grandma's peanut butter cookies were better though.
It's not that sweet.
It's not that sweet, which is good. Now I feel cheated. I just got a bagel sandwich. Let me see yours. What is it?
Ham and cheese.
Oh, nice. What'd you get?
Sausage roll.
Nice. Yeah, I definitely feel cheated. Let me see yours, Jennifer.
Almost finished.
Oh no, so what's in it?
Spicy sausage, pepperoncinis, and roasted peppers.
Nice.
It's good.
I thought it was done, but it says keep going, more businesses ahead. There's the inn at Castle Rock.
The missile and
The missile that did not explode. Oh, look at the mural. That's pretty. Peace Wall, Bisbee, Arizona. Look, there's fruit here. I'm not sure what it is.
from that tree up the hill.
Yeah, so there, oh, that must be a fruit tree right there. Look at all the houses on the hillside. Oh, wow, so many cactus right there. Where's the century plant?
You gotta get around the tree.
Oh. Oh, wow, look at that huge century plant. Look at all these houses on the side of the hill. That would definitely give me anxiety living in one of these. It says more businesses, but I guess these are businesses. They're not as cool as the other part of town. There's a church right there. Well, rough to you too. So there's the screaming banshee across the street. Some kind of weird statue of a shirtless man. Mr. Clean, Mr. Clean. That's what it reminds me of, but it's actually a memorial dedicated to the copper miners. It was erected in 1935. There's the church right there. Does anybody know what that building is right there? The courthouse?
It is the tax assessor's building.
Oh, tax assessors. And there's a market on this side here. Oh, look at all the prickly pear cactus fruit. It's fine. I mean, I don't see any needles on this one.
Hours, see if they open up the lunch.
Look! That reminds me of Slab City, though. That's cool. They got that decked out. Look at all the owls on the roof. Oh my god. We're gonna do a mine tour today, and it's in a cart, so that'll be really cool. You do have to make your reservation. It's by reservation only. So we have a reservation at 3 p.m. and 5 of us are gonna go, so that should be fun. It is $14 per adult, and it's at the Queen Mine. Oh, there's a community garden. How cute. Oh, maybe it's just this person's garden. Oh, it's a tiny home. That's awesome. Wow, look at this huge wall of art. It's way up there. Husky. That is so cool. Ah! Satan baby. That's not cool. Look, a new way to ride a broom. What is that? What is that? That's crazy. We've come by this farmer's market just to check it out. There's not a lot of vendors, but they have some cute stuff here. What'd you get? Oh, eggs. Oh, what are those?
Duck eggs.
Wow, nice.
Gentleman over there is selling duck eggs.
How much are they?
$4 for half dozen.
Nice. That's nice. They have live music here. But first, coffee. So we've come here to the morning cafe to get a little lunch before we go on our tour. It's just like a pancake house. Here's their menu. Ew, breakfast. So Rady's cup of coffee was a little on the stale side, and he had a cup like mine, but she brought him out another cup, and how I do my coffee. Seriously, very seriously. Look at how the syrup comes in a Coke bottle. Hey, you want to be the first one to try that one out?
I'm going to skip the syrup.
Oh, you're gonna skip the syrup?
Yep, just butter.
Butter, baby. There it is, one blueberry pancake. Still a little full from earlier. We're here at the Lavender Pit. We're getting ready to go on the mine ride underground, viewing the pit. It's awesome. Wow, there is more than 300 different types of minerals found in the hills around Bisbee. You've got the red, which is sulfide, gray, granite. Yellow is a thin layer of breccia. And purple or lavender is the limestone.
They're the real ones that the miners rode back in the day. There's one of them out there that's from 1926, so it's the genuine thing. And as you went underground, you needed to be safe. So you've made a good start at being safe. You have a safety vest. You cannot be unsafe if you're wearing this vest. Whenever you went underground, you never went by yourself. You always had a partner. And today we have a partner. My name is John, and our partner's name is Mr. Mike. You're going to say, "Good afternoon, Mr. Mike."
Good afternoon, Mr. Mike.
Good afternoon, Mike. Yeah, he always talks to himself. So he's going to be on the train behind us, and he's going to be on a motor behind us, rather, and he'll keep an eye out for anything you might drop. So you're not going to want to reach underneath that train. We're going to find out more about that. In order to be safe, you have your safety vest. Now we're going to outfit you with a hard hat. The company that owns this mine, Freeport Minerals, they want everybody to be safe. And cranium protection is very important. There's an adjuster knob on the back, and it adjusts that headband for you. Okay, so you're going to come down here. I'm going to plop this onto your cranium, and you can adjust it to your own skull size. Okay? But I have to put the helmet onto your noggin. I don't know why, but the Bureau of Mines says I have to do it. So that's a good thing, because I get to find out who's hard-headed, who's air-headed, who's metal-headed. I get to find out all.
Alright, got the hard hat on and vest and my light.
Who's going to be a
We're
good
ready to
neighbor?
go.
Oh, there you go. We can make this person scooch.
This is a little awkward, the way you have to sit in this car.
There's an awkward word. Why don't you scooch?
Scooch.
Scooch.
It's authentic. So there's sharp rocks, splintered timbers, rusty bolts. You do not want to encounter them. If you drop your hat, let it go. Mr. Mike is behind us. He will pick it up. We have more helmets inside. If you drop your cell phone, do not reach for it. Sometimes they drop, they get banged up, but we've never had one get destroyed or totally lost. If you drop your wallet, well, you'll never see it again. But as we go underground, keep in mind a couple things. That safety is our major thing, so do not reach underneath. Also, as you go underground, you can take any photos you like. There's no copyrights, nothing of that nature. I don't even charge for autographs. And keep in mind that if you take some images, those images will go viral, because if you get Mr. Mike and me in the same image, it's gonna blow up your phone. Now, as we go down here, we're gonna ring the bell whenever we get ready to move the train. And this train is 100 years old, so it's quirky, jerky, clunky, funky. You like those visuals? When I ring the bell, that means we're moving. So be ready for it. Okay, everybody ready to go? Here we go.
Oh. Squeaky. Ooh, creepy.
Okay, usually folks that take this tour are informed type of folks, so you know that our country is currently facing issues of supply chains and labor shortages. So the mine has had to face those issues as well. So in the day, our tour was 55 minutes. Now it's 3 minutes and 14 seconds. So I hope you liked it. If you liked it, come back tomorrow and bring your friends. No, actually, there's a lot more to see. By the time we get done, you're going to see a shaft up ahead here on the left-hand side. It's called the Copper Queen Shaft. It was the very first shaft drilled here in 1877, and it comes in at a 45-degree angle. From an engineering point of view, it's very strange, because it was covered up for 44 years. Then they uncovered it, but it's an anomaly because they stopped doing it that way. They don't do 45-degree shafts anymore because it's very inefficient. You got to power things in, you got to power things up, you got to power things down, and it just takes a lot of energy to move the rock. So they don't do that anymore. But as you look down there, you're going to see some ladders, some landings, something called laggings, which are 12 by 2 boards, or 12 by 16 boards that are put against the face to keep it stable. You're going to see that down there. It goes down about 300 feet off to the left-hand side. We'll slow up a little bit so you can look at it. As we go down the track, I will stop the train to open up an air door because there's a 50 horsepower fan that brings fresh air down this tunnel all day, every day. And you'll feel some wind tunnel effects from that as we walk around. So I've come into the darkest and the narrowest part of the mine for a reason. I've come here because I want you to get used to being underground, because that's where you are. And if anybody feels uneasy down here, let us know and we can make arrangements for you. But if you're ready to go on and you want to find out more about this mining business, you got to give me permission to take you down. You got to give me a great big yo. So, yo! Okay, let's go. We're on our way. We're off to see the wizard. We're going to be dancing in the moonlight.
The wonderful wizard of
There's a man behind the curtain. There's nothing happening here.
What? Wow, that is steep. Squeaky!
Okay, just like on the surface, a green light means go, And so the track ahead is clear for us. We're going to head on down to that furthest green light, and that's kind of a famous light. It's kind of actually kind of legendary. That is the light at the end of the tunnel. Hey, I promised you, the jokes aren't that good. Still a tough crowd for a weekend.
You should serve dinner in the lobby. That would have been fun. Left-hand side and follow me down here. We're going to go into a cross-cut tunnel. So as I come by, you're going to hop off and become ambulatory, walk down this way, and meet me in this cross-cut tunnel. So you're going to hop off the train as I come by and get ready to go down. You go down this cross-cut tunnel.
Hey girl, hey.
Hey girl, hey.
Oh, look at, they wedged like wood in there to keep that rock in there. That doesn't seem safe at all.
No. And we would need to go out a different way than how we came in.
No road.
The miners always had 2 ways in, 2 ways out.
Evacuation.
You won't need it today.
That's the evacuation route.
Haven't used it for 45 years. Not going to use it today. So I'm kind of old. I might forget how we got in. Don't worry, Mr. Mike is here. Everybody else get again this wall. That's my West Virginia uncles talking. You got to get again that wall. And my West Virginia uncles worked in the coal mines, and they had something in common with the copper guys because they worked 10 hours a day back in those early days. Now this cross-cut mine is drilled at a right angle to that main tunnel up there. And you say, well, what the heck did they come down here to do? Well, their job was to break ground. You say, what's that mean? Well, they would drill into this host rock. This gray and brown rock, you can see it all around you. I saw your lights bouncing around when you were driving down here. And that's that waste rock. The miners called that overburden. They would drill into that host rock and they would try to extract the valuable ore. They would drill into it, blast it apart with dynamite or black powder, and then break it up into chunks that they could haul out. And this was the chunks that they hauled out. They called it muck. You and I wouldn't call it that, but when they put it in those ore cars, the process of loading it was called mucking out the muck. Hey, the miners were not linguists, all right? Mucking out the muck. So that's what they came down here to look for, that malachite right there. It's bluish, it's greenish, it's an unusual color, but they could spot that a long ways off, and that's where they got the copper. They came down here, and for 97 years they pulled copper out of this mountain, and not only did they get copper, but they got gold and silver. And they pulled 8 billion pounds, 8 billion, with the B, 8 billion pounds of copper out of these, out of the 26 mines that operated in Bisbee, Arizona. They got 150 million ounces of silver, 3 million ounces of gold. So this was a bonanza mine. This was a place you wanted to get a job because the miners made a good life, a good wage, and a good living. And the people that invested in the mining here into a company called Phelps Dodge, they made great dividends. So the mine was a booming business. And let's think about it a little bit. The only reason anybody would come to Arizona in 1877 was to make a good paycheck, because there was absolutely nothing here to draw you. The climate wanted to kill you. The terrain wanted to kill you. The insects wanted to kill you. The snakes and Gila monsters and polecats, pumas wanted to kill you. The Mexican bandits who were here, they wanted to kill you. And the other settlers who were here, they were usually derelicts and runaways from back east. They wanted to kill you too. So the reason to come here in 1877 could only be one reason, and that's to maybe strike it rich as a miner. So the miners came down here, and in 1877 they started finding indicators of silver and gold and copper, and so they drilled this tunnel in 1915, because starting in 1977 they couldn't get the ore out of here fast enough. They would load that ore into these ore cars. They had cross-cut miners who laid this track. They put down the ties. They put spikes into those ties and anchored that rail, and then you could push those ore cars out of here. And back in the early days, the only way to get it out of here was to push it out. They didn't have enough technology, know-how, to figure out another way. So they hired young men to push these ore cars, 600-pound ore cars out, one at a time. Terrible job. And they got a little help, because when they laid this track, they put a 2% grade on it. Aha! So you had gravity as your friend. And those young men, they were called swampers or trammers. They would push those ore cars out of here. What a terrible job. But once again, that was as good as they could do. In 1880, that's how you move things, with just brute strength of animals, or in this case, men. Now they couldn't pull the ore out of here fast enough. So in 1904, they brought mules down here. The mules liked it down here because it was very easy work. The mules are a hybrid of a donkey and a horse. They originally started pulling the ore cars out with horses, but they noticed there was a low beam, and every time the horse went through there, he would bump his head. Not so much that he got knocked out or got blood on his head, but he would bump his head every single time. And they looked at that, and then they brought mules down here, and the mules would duck. Well, maybe the mules like it down here. Maybe the mules understand a little bit better what's going on. So the mules came down here, and they were trained to pull 4 of these ore cars at a time. Guys that trained them were called mule skinners. And they never skinned them. No. They were too valuable to do any kind of harm to them. They were pampered. The mythology of mules going blind or dying in the mines didn't happen here, because they were just too important. And they would pull 4 of these ore cars out at a time, and they knew they were pulling 4 because they could hear the chains between each car snap when they took the slack out. So the mule skinner would say, "Giddy up," and the mule would hear, "Car number 1, car number 2, car number 3, car number 4. Now the mules knew they were supposed to pull 4, but the miners would try to fool the mules. Say, "What do you mean?" Well, the miners got bonus money for moving extra tonnage. So they'd say, "Let's hook on a 5th car. We'll get credit for that tonnage. We'll get a bonus in our paycheck." So they'd hook on a 5th car, and the mule would hear that 5th car. What do you think the mule did when he heard that? Stopped. And some people say that was the first underground union. The miners were a teeny bit smarter than the mules, so they would get behind that 5th car and they would push it just ever so slightly so that the chain wouldn't snap. But the mule knew, because when he started walking, he could feel the weight behind him. He knew when he was pulling 5 cars. It was too much weight. He would stop. He'd look. They'd unhook the 5th car. He'd hear the 5th chain unsnap. Then he would go ahead. So the mules were very on top of things. They were a little bit smarter than the miners, I think. The miners worked down here along with the mules. Keep in mind that in 1900, they didn't have these cute little lights like we had. They had candlelight. That was how they saw things down here. And each miner was given 3 candles per shift. And they were special smokeless candles made by the Schneider Candle Company. And they brought those down here, and that was all the light they had. And to give them credit, the miners had the same light that the mules did. But the mules' eyes would suffer. They would lose their dilation property, and so their eyes would be stuck, their pupils would be stuck in wide open. So that wasn't a good thing. So after about 3 years, they had a vet that always took care of the mules, and he said, "Time for this one to go up to the surface." So at night, they would pack that mule up, they would blindfold that mule, and take it up to the surface, and then they'd take it and put it in a barn. And they would cover up the doors and windows with tarps and slowly let the ambient and sunlight in. So the mill's eyes slowly regained their dilation property. Every organism in the world can't adapt. That's something about us as organisms. That's why you get calluses on your hands if you work with hand tools, okay? So you adapt. So the mules adapted, they regained their eyesight in sunlight and regular light, and they were totally rehabilitated, and they returned to civilian life, and they actually had a better retirement system than the miners did. Because the miners had no retirement system. Now the mules couldn't pull that ore out of here fast enough, so they had to bring electricity down here in the mine. In 1921, they brought electricity down here with electric lines like this, and they would run 220 volts down this line, and they would hook it up to a trolley. You know what trolleys are because you've seen them in San Francisco. They have a boom arm that goes up and picks up the juice, and then the trolley itself runs on the track. So the trolley would come, they put that on this track, and those trolleys were monsters. Those things could pull 25 of these ore cars down this track going 20 miles an hour. Oh boy. They were moving a lot of rock. So the trolleys, and there's one of them sitting out there by the chain link fence. It has the number 46 welded into it. And it's sitting right out there, and it could pull those ore cars like that. Now, the problem was that those ore cars and trolleys were sharing this track with the guy that rode this bike. You say, well, who the heck was riding that bike? Well, the shift bosses. This was never used to pull ore or anything of that nature. The shift bosses complained to the company. They said, hey, we got to visit our men once before mealtime and once after. So we're walking 25 miles a day. We need transportation. And the company said, you're right. And they thought they would get a little motor like pulled us in. It's called a Manchai motor, made by the Manchai Motor Company. And they thought they would get one of those, battery powered, charge it up every afternoon, and then it'd be ready to go the next morning. They didn't give them those Manchai motors. They gave them this. They said, here's your transportation. And they didn't even buy it. They made it here. They made these bikes here in the blacksmith shop. They couldn't make the wheels, because that's a foundry thing. But the blacksmiths made these bikes. And you can see they're chain driven, so they're pretty sophisticated. And the shift boss could ride this down the track, share the track with those trolleys and ore cars. Not a good idea. But one thing you notice about it, it doesn't have any brakes on it. So to stop it, you have to drop your feet and drag them, kind of like Fred Flintstone, you know. We had some third graders come in here the other day, and a young guy goes, I know what that is. And I said, well, what is it? He said, that's the miner's workout bike. Well, it didn't really need a workout bike, because the work down here is very strenuous. We're going to talk more about that. But these things were taken off the track. You can see this comes from like the 1960s. You recognize that banana seat, you know, and the banana splits used to ride bikes with banana seats on them. Some of us remember that show. I used to watch it on Saturday mornings. And the banana splits rode these little ATVs, and they had banana split bike seats. Anyway, they got rid of these because it was like a disaster waiting to happen. That trolley coming down this track, pulling 20 ore cars on the same track as a guy riding a bicycle, not a good idea. Now, a shift boss could move it, and he could pick it up and lift it off of the track, but or maybe pull onto a siding, but it was just a trouble waiting to happen. And the shift bosses needed to travel around nonetheless because they had to visit their crews because they got something called sample sacks. And you say, what's that? Well, every inch of this mine was mapped, so they would mark down where they found ore. And they would find whatever they found, they would mark down where they found it. So when their men were working, they would pick up the ore, put it in the sample sack, mark down the coordinates, take it to the assay office where the geologists were. And so they knew. Sometimes they just found junk rock like this, that overburden. They said, don't drill there, there's nothing there. That's not worth anything. That's just a pain in the butt to get out of the way. Sometimes they found good stuff, like this malachite that my light's on. Well, you found that. That was a hot spot. Go after that. And that's what they did here because we're on level 3. Levels 1 and 2 are below us. We're on level 3. 1 and 2 are mostly sumps to carry away water because there was a lot of water here back in the old days. Sometimes the ore got stuck in there, and so they'd have to use something like this called a chute bar. You'd open up that door, you'd jam that clogged rock loose to get it to fall into that ore chute, and fall into that ore car. The guy that had that job, he was called a chute tapper. And water would come out of these chutes, and sometimes you'd knock it loose, and 4 to 10 tons of rock would come flying down out of there. So that was a terrible job.
Sometimes the rock got stuck, the ore got stuck, so they needed the help of a Indian. See, Indian, well, no, not really, because that's what the miners call the stick of dynamite. You'd stick that up in that ore chute when it got stuck, light that fuse, it burned at 40 seconds a foot. You stick that up in there, put it against that clog, light that fuse and shut the door and hope for the best. They called it an Indian because it's made by the Apache Dynamite Company in Benson, Arizona. The company, Phelps Dodge, bought Apache Dynamite Company, and they owned it. They owned their own dynamite company. And if you go to Benson, Arizona, you can take a tour of the factory. Right now, on Monday, you can take a tour of the Apache Dynamite Company, and they'll show you how they made it. And if you get the right permits, you can buy your own dynamite. Take it home with you. So that's how they got the rock down out of here. Questions you have? Observations? Challenges?
Canaries, were they used?
No such thing in the copper mine. And that's a good question. Canaries were used in the coal mines because think about coal. Coal is rotting vegetation. There are pieces of coal that look like leaves, look like palm leaves. There are pieces of coal that look like Tyrannosaurus Rex heads because that is what it is. It's millions of years old, rotting and decomposing vegetation. And so it's very unstable. In a coal mine, there is methane, and methane will explode and kill everybody in sight. So they had canaries in there because when the canaries would smell the methane, they would pass out. If you saw the canary was hopping around, then he fell on the floor of the cage, you go, uh-oh, we better get out of here. There wasn't anything like that here. Because this calcium carbonate, this limestone, it doesn't emit methane. It's not rotting vegetation. It's a whole different geological structure. So no canaries, and a lot fewer cave-ins. Coal mines are very bad places because you can have a cave in there if you sneeze and it'll all come down and you'll have 30 and 40 people perish at once. Nothing like that ever happened here. Never, because the rock is just too hard. It doesn't want to give up. Yeah. Okay, let's move on down our tunnel here. Rocks they encountered down here were pyrites. And pyrites come from the same word as pyrotechnics. What are pyrotechnics? Fire. 4th of July. Fireworks. Pyrotechnics are fireworks. So pyrites would smolder down here. So they actually had fires underground. It's kind of counterintuitive, but it happened. So they would shut these doors. You can see they put these doors up here in 1917. They'd shut these doors, pack the edges with wet rags, and try to smother a fire underground. Starve it for oxygen. There were fires underground. And some mines caught on fire, and they never went out. There's a coal mine in Pennsylvania. It's burning today, and it's been burning for like the last 75 years because they can't put it out. But down here, they had to put it out because they didn't want the air to be fouled by smoke. Now these drills, they came down here in the 1920s. Here you have a red one. It could drill like a beast. This could drill and hammer. This one could drill and hammer, and it's called a Gardner Denver jackleg. And it's a real, the Cadillac, the real sophisticated advancement in drilling. They're all powered by compressed air from up on the surface, compressors, but one man could carry this. It only weighs 95 pounds. And it's powered by compressed air. These things are powered by compressed air, but you have all these jack screws and columns, etc., to get this thing to set in place. This jack leg accomplishes everything these jack screws and columns did. The jack leg would burrow into the ground, has 150 pounds air pressure on it, it digs into the ground, so while it's pushing that away, that drilling that away. And so they would drill a pattern of holes into the wall, pack those holes with dynamite or black powder, and blast that rock apart. Blast it into that muck size so they could carry it out of here. That was what it was all about. Now this drill was actually too good. It could drill so fast and so efficiently and so vigorously that it would fill this whole cavity up with white dust. The bad part was that white dust was silica dust. And silica is sand. And silica is what we make glass out of. So that white dust was microscopic glass. And the miners would inhale that. It's long before they had respirators or anything. They would inhale that and they would get very, very sick with a disease called silicosis. Talking about coal mines, there's a disease called black lung, and miners died from that. Black lung has a medical name, and it's like 17 syllables. I can't even say it. But see, these nurses know. They know. And
But the silicosis was such that the miners were dying when they were 38 or 40 years old because they were inhaling that microscopic glass. So they had to do something about it because they didn't want this mine to get the reputation as a place you wanted to die. You didn't want that, no. So you had these compressed air drills, but they also have a cylinder inside them, and so they hooked up a water line to these drills. And they ran the water down that cylinder, pumped it into that steel at the end of that drill. There was a hole. And so that water would gush out of that hole at the end of that steel and flood that hole with water and turn that dust into slurry, into a muddy paste. And so what had been dust became mud and nobody died. So something as simple as that saved miners' lives. Now this wall wasn't called a wall by the miners. They called this a rib. They didn't call this a ceiling, they called this a back. So what do you mean? Well, the miners didn't have PlayStation, they didn't have internet, but they did have the Bible. And in the Bible, they all knew the story of Jonah and the whale. And this was the whale's rib, and this was the whale's back. And so they drill into the rib, and they didn't want to bring the back down on top of it. By drilling a particular pattern of holes in here, the back would stay intact. And you're going to find out more of that because we're going to find out about blowing things up. So let's go down here and find out about that. You drilled these holes, and you drilled it in this particular pattern. And then you packed these holes with dynamite and a blasting cap and a fuse. Then you drilled them, you start in the middle here, and that's your cut hole. That's the middle place you start. When it explodes, it blasts into these weak places. And you light your fuses with a modern day sparkler kind of apparatus. And you light these fuses. And the fuses will burn at 40 seconds a foot. This goes off first. That makes a cut hole, a weak place, a fissure, a gap. Okay? And then this would explode. Then these would go off next because of the length of the fuse, and they would implode. So, explosion, boom, implosion, boom, implosion, boom, implosion, boom, and would blast into that weak place. This is your 5-hole. These are your concentrics. These are your breast holes. These are your skimmers. And they would go off in that particular precise sequence based on the length of the fuses. Then the last thing that went off were these down here at the bottom. These are called lifters. They put 150 sticks of dynamite in there. They'd cut the dynamite with a knife. They'd cram it into that hole with a rod like this, and then they would light the fuses. And they had 6 minutes to walk away, but the last 10 seconds was the critical point. Because of the length of the fuses, they knew there'd be like a second pause between each one. So it would go boom, 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 then kaboom. These last ones would go off. And they made a noise like this. There wasn't any big Hollywood boomity boomity because that rock would muffle the sound. And so they would go, it would lift up, when it went off, these lifters, as the name implies, would lift up this pile. The coal shaft, it's 32 levels deep with 100 feet between each level, 3,200 feet underground. When you get to about 1,500 feet, it's no longer cool like it is in here. At 1,500 feet, the whole geology of the earth changes and it becomes hot. 1,500 feet, you're working in 85, 90 degree temperatures. So mining was not a fun job. You rode this cage. If you were on level 3 and you needed a ride, you needed to call for the cage. You'd ring this bell right here. You'd ring it, and you can see there's a code of the bells. And I'm on 3. You can read that there, station signals. I'm on 3. I'd ring that bell 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That told everybody on every level. Somebody's on 3 and they need a ride. It would ring here and on every level. It would ring here inside the shaft where there was a guy called the cager. And then it rang up on the surface, the guy controlling those cables. He would hear it. See, he would hear it. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, somebody's on 3. They need a ride. So you're going to show us what, you're going to step over here. You're going to show us what the hoist engineer did. You're going to grab a hold of that yellow rope and give it a good sharp yank. Yeah, pull it down. Harder. Yes, okay, great work. Hey. Yeah. And I'm glad Jesus was there to help you. But that would, and the cager, or rather the hoist engineer, he would ring that bell one time. That meant, I hear you, I'm coming to get you. So they communicated that way because it was too wet for telephones, and it was too thick of walls for walkie-talkies. Over here, see, where was I? Yeah, then over here you found ways to move the rock. You have a rig like this. This is called a Copper Queen rocker. You push it away from yourself. It's counterbalanced, and you could dump it and get that rock out. So you can move a lot of rock pretty quick. Over here, there's another machine. It's called a Finley, and it's a front-end loader. You flip this lever, this bucket drops, and it scoots and gets underneath that muck pile, grabs that rock, you pull it back, that bucket scoots up, it comes back here, chain driven, on like a rail system, comes back here and hits these big springs, and it goes wham! And it dumps that muck right into that ore car. It can move a lot of rock, and you can move fast, which is a good thing, because the miners wanted to get that rock out of here, because they, that's how they got their bonuses, moving the rock. So, and that was a good thing, because they could get those bonuses. It was a bad thing. How was it a bad thing? Well, they didn't want to be off their tools. So if you had to go to the bathroom and you'd be away from your tools, you'd lose your bonus. So they had to devise their own sanitation system. Ooh, not a good idea. They took dynamite boxes, put sand in them, went to the bathroom in them. Oh, no. Because some microbes really like that. Some microbes, that's a great place for us to, that's a great habitat for us microbes. And let's make these miners sick. And they made them sick with a disease called hookworm. So pestilence came into the mine. Remember, they ate their lunches down here.
Yeah.
So they were so sick they couldn't work. They were too sick to work, and all the miners were home, but their guts torn up from the hookworm. So the company had to do something. Well, what did they do? Well, they came up with this right over here. And this is not a barbecue. This is the original porta potty. They brought this down here, and somebody was asking about how they went to the bathroom. Well, you can hop up there and show us. If you want to sit here, you can show us how that was utilized. They climbed up on here, and you can see they went to a lot of trouble to make these nice rubber grommets to keep your tushy cool, or keep your tushy warm. But the company called this a sanitation car, but the miners called it the S car. And the S car, the S did not stand for sanitation. It stood for another word. It was a little bit shorter, but it started with an S. Now, an old miner was put in charge of this. He liked that job because even though everybody made fun of him because he was the guy taking care of the waste, he could roll this thing onto the track, take it up to the surface, rinse it out with a hot water hose, slather it down with kerosene, set it on fire to kill those microbes, and turn it towards the Arizona sun, let it get nice and sanitized, bring it down, and he kept the miners healthy. Yeah, the old miner loved that because he didn't have to do any mucking, he didn't have to handle any dynamite, and he got paid miners' wages, and he got the weekends off. So this was a great thing for the miners. Something as simple as this kept them healthy, kept them working, kept those paychecks coming. Yeah.
So when they took it out, was it called escargot?
That's a very good
We'll have
words,
to add that
but
here.
usually only the French people understand. No, the escargot was a snail car. No. But my neighbor has one of these in his yard, and it's right by his front door. His wife has put flower pots in here.
Oh, yeah.
And I look at that thing, and I want to go over there and lift up the flower pots. Any fertilizer down in there? But in a mining town, that's considered kind of cool.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So we're going to have to go back and get on the train.
For every 100 pounds of that ore, they got 1 pound of copper. The richest ore they'd ever seen, any place in the Americas. So, once again, this was very much a bonanza mine. There's also an ore in there that's reddish and brownish called hematite. There's also an ore in there called galena, and galena has silver in it, so they're getting copper. And from the hematite, they got gold. And hematite comes from the same root word as hematology and hemoglobin. And I'll let you figure out in your own mind why they called it hematite. Now in this hard rock that they were mining, spent a lot of time talking about dynamite and blasting, because this rock does not want to give up. You got to force it down. As I said previously, it's not like coal. Coal will come down all by itself. Sometimes they had places that were loose and gravelly, so they would erect a structure like this, kind of made like Lincoln logs, if somebody remembers those. And you could arrange this so that a miner could work inside that cubicle right there and then be safe inside there. So you could work inside there, and all this would protect you. If the mountain started to move, if you were dynamiting down here, and that structure got under pressure, it would snap and crack and split and bow and make noises. So the miner said, when the timber starts talking, the miner starts walking. Now there were miners who perished here. 384 of them in 97 years in the 26 mines that were here in Bisbee. There were cave-ins, but nothing of the magnitude of what you had in coal. The most people that ever perished in a single cave-in here in the Bisbee mines was 3. There's a book called 7 Bells. You already know what that means, don't you? And that book lists every fatality and every injury in the Bisbee mines. So they operated here for 97 years, pulling rock out of the ground. And grandfathers worked next to grandsons. But that all changed. On June the 14th, 1975, the mine closed. The men came to work, and the company officials were here, and they said, "Go home, men. We'll send you a letter." They didn't send them in the mine to clean anything out. They didn't give them a warning it was going to close. They closed, and they left everything here. All that equipment you saw back there, that Finley, that Copper Queen rocker, all that equipment was left in here. That square set, they were all left in here. They just closed up the mine, they shut off the pumps, and they went home. And so the mine was essentially done for. That was the last day of active mining in Bisbee, Arizona. So nothing has gone on here for 45 years in terms of pulling rock out of the ground. But the miners did survive because the company, called Phelps Dodge back then, gave them jobs in any mine that they wanted to work in. If you were a miner and you wanted a job in a mine, you could get one in Morenci, in Ajo, and other places around the state. And the mine in Morenci still operates today. It's an open pit mine. It's nothing like this. It's just a gigantic hole in the ground where they just blast the dickens out of everything. It's more dynamite than anything else. They just blast it apart. They send the stuff they blast into a hammer mill where it's pounded into powder. Then they take it to the refinery in El Paso and hope to get the copper out. They pull out, in Morenci today, they pull out 700,000 tons, 700 kilotons of ore every day. It's not ore like this back here, though. It's not that high quality ore. It's 2% copper. So it's a matter of scale, isn't it? They pull out 700,000 tons a day. You smelt it down, you process it, you get 2% copper out of 700,000 tons. You're still getting a pretty good amount of copper out. And this mine closed here because copper went down to 20 cents a pound. Today, copper, I just looked it up this morning, is $4.51 a pound for copper. So copper is at a high mark right now. And the company is making good money. We're very grateful to the company. It's now called Freeport Minerals. They let us lease this mine for $300 a year. So we can come down here and talk about the old mining days. But to them, this is more like a pain in the butt than anything else. Because it's just an old mine. They don't, there's ore here, but nothing significant that they would need to, that they could make it profitable again. Because they have huge mines. The company, Freeport, has huge mines in Indonesia, in Chile, in Peru. There's a mine in Indonesia that is bigger than Long Island.
So they're going to be pulling ore out of there for 100 years. So they don't need this. This is just kind of an old antique thing, you know, like button-up shoes. You know, you could wear them, but why would you bother? You got to button all those buttons. Anyway, so the mine did close on June the 14th, 1975, and a miner like this guy right here. Some of you found him already. He's called a raise miner, and he would drill above his head, and he would just follow the ore wherever it went. And you can see that wherever he drilled, every piece of rock he knocked loose had the chance to hit him in the head. I also mentioned how those drills had water in them, so he was getting drenched. So that guy, on June the 14th, 1975, they had to pay him a good buck to get him to do that job. Nobody wanted it. It was very difficult work, so they had to pay him $50 a day. And he also got bonus money. He was expected to drill 5 feet per day. Every foot he drove above 5, he got $100 in bonus money. So miners like that guy, he was taking home bonus money. It could be as much as $5,000 or $6,000 a month.
And they didn't have income tax, did they yet?
Well, in 1975 they did.
Oh.
Yeah. But those guys are making good money. Miners have always been well paid because you have to do something to entice them to come into a place like this. It's dark, it's damp, it's dirty, it's dusty, it's dangerous, okay? Especially when there's another D down here, dynamite. Yeah, you got to do something. So they've always paid the miners really well. Even today, miners make a good living. Mine guides, no. But that's okay, because I get to come down here and talk to folks like you. You say, what do you mean folks like us? Well, you came here on purpose, and you brought something very special with you. You say, what are you talking about? Well, this mine is left over from a bygone era. And what happened after June the 14th, 1975 is the town went through a convulsive change. Everybody left. But one thing kept the town intact. You say, well, what was that? Well, it's the fact that I live here. No, that has nothing to do with it. What kept the town intact was its architecture. The houses, there's no two houses that look the same. They're all stacked on top of each other. They built all those houses because they needed all those workers, and they had no cars, so they all had to walk to work. So the people left, but the houses were still here. My house is built in 1906. It is completely built out of concrete. There are no wooden walls in my house. There's a wooden roof, but the house is made out of concrete. If I want to hang a picture, I have to get a masonry bit. So that's the way it was made. It was made that way on purpose. And it was owned by the mine. So every time the town burned down, they rebuilt, but they rebuilt out of brick and stone. So a house like mine, it was built after the second big fire, because there was another big fire in 1908, but it didn't burn down. It didn't burn down because it's made out of concrete. So the town managed to survive because of its architecture. And so when people come here, they look around, they come around out of the tunnel, and they look down in here and they say, what is going on down there? What are those people thinking about? And I wonder that myself. I stand on my son's front porch and I see a house way up there, and I wonder, who carried all those bricks up there? Who carried all those pipes, all those bundles of shingles, all that concrete? Well, they built those houses, and so the town has a certain vibe to it, has a certain look to it. I don't have to tell you that, because that's why you're here. But you also brought something very special with you. I want you to do something for me. You're going to give yourself a round of applause. Yes, I want you to do it. Because you could be sitting someplace eating a waffle. You could be sitting someplace drinking a kilt lifter. But you're not. You're here because you wanted to find out something new. And you brought that very special thing with you. And it's the cure for boredom. It's called curiosity. Thank you for being curious. It's an honor and privilege to talk to you about real history. And it's an honor and privilege to talk to people who really want to know about it. So we had to change our way of life here in Bisbee from extracting rocks out of the ground to extracting dollars out of visitors' wallets. And I don't say that in a derogatory way, because there is a lot of interesting stuff going on here. So regretfully with that finishes what I have to say, but we do have to go back to 2022. We have to go back to the current world, as unpleasant as it may be. So you're going to take your badge and give it to Mr. Mike at the bottom of the steps. You're going to take your light and put it on the counter. You're going to put your vest in the middle of the counter, then your hat's all the way down at the end for me. So with that, I say thank you. And I also do karaoke down here. So it goes like this. It goes back to life, back to reality. So we have to go back to reality, but hopefully you've learned something new about mining. And more importantly, you learn something about yourself. You're a special group. You're the curious people. So stay that way. It's good for you. So let's go down the steps here and get back on our train and go back to modern day.
Thank you.
That last step is a short one.
Thank you. Okay, let's go ahead and get in. Okay. We squeezed 5 people on a cart. Everybody say hey. Hey. Well, this is a very cool and interesting tour. I want to thank y'all for hanging out with me. Hopefully we'll see you next time. Until then, stay safe and onward bound. Love you guys out there. Bye for now.